I love origin stories. I really do. When my kids ask me, of all the Lord of the Rings, which is your favorite? I'm like, the first, the Fellowship. They're like, what? The last one's so epic. I'm like, I know, I love that one too. But the origin story. I want to see how the Fellowship comes together. Like, of all the Marvel movies, which do you like best? Oh, the origin stories of each character. I want to see what made Tony Stark Iron Man. I want to see how Captain America became Captain America. To see something kind of in its raw form and then become something, give me Batman Begins any day. I want to see where it all began. I want to see where it starts. That's it. Well, what's interesting about all of that is pondering how we become what we need to become and where we started to begin it all. We've seen this already in section 93 when it comes to Jesus. Look at him and what was he like when he started and how did he end up? Well, what about us? What's our origin story? In the class I teach to non-Latter-day Saints at BYU, in one of the Plan of Salvation lessons, I show a picture of a newborn baby. I'll ask these, most of them are pretty tough athletes. I'm like, have you ever held a newborn? Oh, yeah. How newborn? And it's funny to talk to the ones that play receiver or tight end. They're like, man, I was never more nervous about dropping a pass than when my older sister handed the newborn over to me. Okay. Well, here's this baby, and I'll ask them, is that where it started? Did existence begin at birth? Well, of course not. Oh, conception? Are we just going to add another 9 months on? Or was there something even earlier than that? What's the origin story for each of us? Now, that's something to wrestle with. Section 93 gives us some words to wrestle with as well. Now, let's start over with verse 36. We already read it, but let's read it again. Verse 36 says, the glory of God is intelligence, or in other words, light and truth. Now, if we saw that on the level of knowledge properly acquired and applied, then great, that's wonderful. But let's read it a little bit deeper. And for this, we'll need the help of verse 29. So rewind to 29 and read this. Man was also in the beginning with God. Intelligence, or the light of truth, was not created or made, neither indeed can be. Now, buckle up. That verse is about as deep as it gets. Man and woman was in the beginning with God. Whoa. That's where we started? Where there was no start? This in the beginning, even in the beginning, that wasn't the beginning. That's not how, Genesis starts. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, but God was already there. And in fact, since we don't believe in creation ex nihilo, creation out of nothing, then matter was there as well. In the beginning, what in the world is that? There is no beginning. There is no end. How does this work? Is smoke coming out of your ears yet? But it's one thing to say that in the beginning was God. It's one thing to say that God need not be created nor made. He is the unmoved mover, as they say. But man was also in the beginning. Humanity, spirit children, and yet even spirit children isn't rewinding the clock early enough. We have to go back beyond that to a time when we were simply intelligence, or the light of truth. It was not created. It was not made. It cannot be. For you scientists out there, think about the law of conservation of mass. That mass cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed. Think about Einstein and E equals mc squared, that mass and energy have an inherent relationship. They're one and the same in some ways. Think of light and truth being existent and without any possibility of being created or destroyed, and intelligence which is us in the beginning with God. This is as deep as it gets. We are co-eternal with God. We were organized by him, created as spirit sons and daughters, but as intelligence, we already existed. Now, I'll confess, this is hard to wrap our heads around. We're made of the same stuff as God, as the universe. God organized that essence, that intelligence into spirit. Spirit then becomes body. Do you see how we are growing and progressing throughout our eternal existence? If this is scripture, Joseph Smith wrestled with his scripture and then taught more about it. And this is a quote from him. The first principles of man are self-existent with God. Okay, there's that co-existent, co-eternal. They're self-existent with God. God himself, finding he was in the midst of spirits and glory, because he was more intelligent, he saw proper to institute laws whereby the rest could have a privilege to advance like himself. Oh, Joseph, there's some deep doctrine. That God was in the midst of intelligence and realized he was more intelligent than they all. Is there a way in his fullness, wanting to pour out that fullness into the rest of us so that we could progress to become more and more like him? How's that possible? Oh, light and truth, intelligence, the glory of God. It's all synonymous. The glory of God is intelligence. In other words, light and truth. Light and truth is not just something we're gaining, it's what and who we are at our very essence. Light cleaveth unto light. We want to become more and more like God. We are drawn to him. You understand? Welcome to class. This is some deep stuff. He goes on and says in verse 30, all truth is independent in that sphere in which God has placed it, to act for itself as all intelligence also. Otherwise, there is no existence. So if we hold on to this definition of us as intelligence, we are meant to act for ourselves. Otherwise, we don't exist at all. And so in some ways, this verse 30, suggests that existence is agency. That there has to be some choice in the matter. Otherwise, what was the point? Remember Lehi's words in 2 Nephi 2? There are things that act and things that are acted upon. And we're supposed to be the first. We're supposed to be agents, not objects. We're supposed to choose things. And no wonder the Lord gives us grace, gives us commandments on what to do with that grace, gives us light and truth so that we can grow in light and truth if we choose it. That truth is independent in the sphere in which it's placed. Remember, every kingdom has a law. Wherever there's a law, there's a kingdom. There's no space where there is no kingdom, and every kingdom has that law. Section 88, that was a mind-blowing revelation too. We're getting similar hints here that if intelligence, even if we use the other definition, the proper application of knowledge, that still implies choosing things. It implies exercising our agency in an intelligent way. Okay? Then go to verse 31 through 33. Behold, here is the agency of man. Let's stay on that topic. And here is the condemnation of man, because that which was from the beginning is plainly manifest unto them, and they receive not the light. Every man whose spirit receiveth not the light is under condemnation, for man is spirit. The elements are eternal, and spirit and element, inseparably connected, receive a fullness of joy. That's why the resurrection is so essential. That's why incarnation is so essential. Remember section 88, the spirit and the body are the soul of man. And without the connection of the two, there is no fullness. There's no fullness of joy, at least. You understand? To me, there's something really deep and really powerful here about what he's describing in those verses. You want eternal fullness, you want eternal joy, then there needs to be spirit and element together. You started as intelligence, some kind of spirit, it becomes spirit through whatever process of spiritual birth God is entailed in that. But to get to the point then when God can take us from intelligence to spirit to body, these spiritual birth, physical birth, spiritual rebirth, a resurrection, growing line upon line toward that fullness every step of the way. Even when he says the agency and condemnation comes, those are inseparably connected as well. If there's no agency, then there's no condemnation. That was Satan's plan. Because if there is condemnation, it's because you exercised your agency in an unintelligent way. And the way the Lord describes it here, that which was from the beginning is plainly manifest, but you didn't receive it. It's like, don't you remember who you are? You are light and truth. Why are you not gravitating to more light and truth? It's not that you're sinning against some kind of external law. You're sinning against self. You're not becoming who you really are. What do you call an unintelligent intelligence? It's a contradiction. It's a condemnation. How can you be dark light? How can you be false truth? Do you not know who you are? My mother recently gave me a bunch of journal entries she wrote during my childhood. She went through her old journals and pulled out all of the paragraphs that had anything to do with me. It's been fascinating to read and remember who I was. There are times I notice progression on my part. I'm thankful for that. But there are other times I look back and wonder, was I closer to God when I was 5? Were my prayers more sincere when I was 6? Was I cleaner and purer and more innocent as an 8-year-old? Did I have more priesthood power when I was 12? You ever ask yourself those kinds of questions? Who was I? And if we can answer that, maybe we can better answer, who am I? And who can I someday be? If we understand ourselves as intelligence, light, truth, glory of God, then live into that potential. Our origin story can become our final chapter. And best of all, there's no final about it.